When was the last time you woke up at 3 in the morning and actually asked yourself why? Not the foggy, half-asleep version, the real question. You're lying there. The room is dark. The clock says something a little after 3. And your heart is going just slightly too fast. Not pounding, just awake, in a way the rest of you wishes it wasn't. You didn't have a nightmare. Nothing woke you. You're simply, suddenly, completely alert, and you have no idea why. Here's what I want you to consider tonight. That wide-awake feeling at 3 in the morning may have almost nothing to do with your mind. It may have everything to do with what your brain is burning for fuel and the fact that somewhere around 2 or 3 in the morning it ran low and sounded an alarm. You weren't woken by your thoughts. You were woken by chemistry. And once you see how that chemistry works, you can change it sometimes in about 5 minutes before you ever get into bed. Before we go further, one quick thing, because it lives in the same window we're about to talk about. So much of what your body repairs, clears, and resets happens overnight while you sleep. I put together a 30-day guide on exactly that. It's called the Drainage Protocol, and it walks you through resetting the fluid and clearance systems your body leans on after 60. It is not a sleep cure, and I won't pretend it is. But it lives in the same overnight territory as tonight's conversation, and a lot of you have asked for it. The link is in the description if you want it. Now, back to the fuel. Let me describe something, and you tell me if it sounds familiar. You fall asleep fine. That's the part people forget. You're tired, you go to bed, you drop off without much trouble. The problem isn't falling asleep. The problem is staying asleep. Because a few hours later, usually somewhere between 2 and 4 in the morning, your eyes open, and now you're stuck. You lie there. You try to relax. You tell yourself to stop thinking. And the harder you try, the more awake you feel. So what do? You blame the obvious things. You blame stress. You blame the news, the bills, your knee, the dog, the temperature of the room. Maybe you blame age itself. You tell yourself this is just what happens after 60, that older people don't sleep, that it's normal and there's nothing to be done. And some of that is partly true. Sleep does get lighter and a little choppier as you get older. It's well documented. As people age, sleep tends to be shorter and lighter, and you may wake up more often during the night. So you're not imagining it. But here's where I want to stop you. Because there's a difference between waking briefly and drifting back, which is normal, and snapping fully awake with a slightly racing heart and lying there for an hour. That second one isn't just light sleep. That has a signature. And that signature points somewhere most people never think to look. You've been treating your 3 in the morning waking as a mind problem, a relaxation problem, a worry problem. So you've thrown mind solutions at it: meditation apps, blackout curtains, white noise, counting backward, breathing exercises. And when those don't fully work, you feel like you failed at the one thing everyone says should be simple. But what if it was never a mind problem at all? What if the racing thoughts at 3 in the morning aren't the cause of your waking? What if they're the result? What if your brain ran low on fuel? Your body hit the panic button to fix it, and the flood of stress chemistry that followed is what woke you and what cranked your mind into overdrive. In that version of the story, your anxious 3 a.m. thoughts aren't keeping you awake. They're the smoke. The fire is somewhere else entirely. That's the whole reframe of this video. You've been trying to calm a mind that was never the problem. The real problem is a fuel switch, and it's happening in the dark every single night while you sleep. If that idea just rearranged something for you, you and I are going to get along. Subscribe and stay with me, because the rest of this only gets clearer from here. So let me show you what's actually happening, with a picture I want you to hold on to for the rest of this video. Think of your liver as a quiet backup generator, not the loud kind, the kind that sits in the basement and runs so smoothly you forget it's there. Its one job overnight is simple but enormous: keep the lights on. And in this picture, the lights are your brain. Your brain is the one room in the house that can never go dark, not for a second. It runs around the clock, awake or asleep, and it is extraordinarily hungry. It can't store its own fuel. It depends, minute by minute, on a steady delivery of sugar in your blood. So all night long, while you're not eating, that basement generator hums along, feeding your brain so the lights never flicker. Now, where does the generator get its fuel? From a tank. And the tank is the stored sugar your liver banks during the day, a reserve called glycogen that's just the word for sugar packed away in storage. The liver breaks down this stored glycogen during periods of fasting to keep your blood sugar up for the rest of the body, and especially for the brain. Every night you sleep, you are fasting. You're not eating for 8, 9, 10 hours, so the generator runs purely off the tank. And here's the part almost nobody tells you. That tank is small. It is not a bottomless reserve. The liver stores only about 100 grams of this packed away sugar, and that store lasts only about 12 hours. 12 hours. That's the whole reserve. So if you ate dinner at 6 in the evening, do the arithmetic. By 2, 3, 4 in the morning, that tank is running thin. The generator starts to sputter. And what your brain does next is the entire story. Before I take you one layer deeper, I have to stop and draw a hard line, because this matters more than anything else I'll say tonight. Not every middle of the night waking is about fuel. Some of it is about things that need a doctor, not a bedtime snack. So listen closely. If you wake up gasping, choking, or snorting for air, or if someone has told you that you stop breathing in your sleep, that is a sign of sleep apnea, which is pauses in breathing during the night, and it needs a real evaluation. If you're waking 3, 4, 5 times a night specifically to urinate, that's its own issue and worth raising with your doctor. If you wake with chest pain, with crushing pressure, with one-sided weakness, with confusion, or drenched in sweat that soaks the sheets night after night, you do not wait and you do not self-treat, you get medical care. And here is the most important warning of all. If you take medication for diabetes, insulin, or pills that lower your blood sugar, then low blood sugar overnight is a real medical event for you. And the answer is never to quietly change your routine based on a video. You talk to the doctor or pharmacist who manages your medication. Always. Nothing I described tonight is a reason to adjust a medication on your own. For everyone still with me, the person who simply wakes up wired at 3 in the morning with no obvious reason, let's go back into the basement and watch the generator sputter. When that fuel tank runs thin in the small hours, your blood sugar starts to drift downward. Now, your body has spent millions of years making sure your brain never starves. So it does not sit quietly and let the lights dim. It panics, and it panics chemically. The moment blood sugar drops past a certain point, your body floods your bloodstream with emergency hormones. The two big ones are adrenaline, the fight-or-flight hormone, and cortisol, the stress hormone. One hormone tells the liver to release stored sugar, and adrenaline and cortisol pour into the bloodstream to speed the whole rescue up. And those hormones do their job. They pry sugar back into your blood and save the brain. The rescue works. But think about what those particular chemicals are. Adrenaline is the hormone of a near miss on the highway. It's the hormone of a sudden loud noise in an empty house. It exists to make you alert, fast, and ready to run. So your body has just, in effect, fired a flare gun inside a sleeping house to fix a fuel problem. Your blood sugar comes back to normal, but now your system is flooded with fight-or-flight hormones, and you wake with a racing heart, fully alert, and unable to fall back asleep. That is your 3 in the morning waking, not your mind, a flare. And here's the detail that turns this from a nice theory into something genuinely convincing. Researchers have actually measured the timing. In studies where they let blood sugar fall during sleep, the spike in adrenaline didn't come after people woke up as if waking caused the stress. It came first. In people who woke during a nighttime blood sugar drop, the rise in adrenaline began before any physical sign of waking even appeared. Read that again slowly. The chemistry moved first. The waking followed. Which means, at least for some people, the alarm goes off and then you open your eyes. You were not woken by a thought. You were woken by a hormone. And the anxious thoughts arrived second, riding in on a tide of adrenaline that was already in your blood. Now, I want to be careful and honest with you here, because that's the only way I know how to do this. A lot of the cleanest research on this exact mechanism was done in people with diabetes, where blood sugar swings are larger and easier to study. But the studies included healthy people too, without diabetes, and those healthy people, when their sugar dropped low enough, woke up the same way, driven by the same surge. So this isn't only a diabetes story, it's a fuel story. And it's why I gently ask you to stop assuming your sleepless hour is a character flaw or a worry you can't control. It may simply be a tank that's too small running out too soon. So now we can finally name the thing in the title, the wrong fuel. Here's what that means. Not all fuel burns the same way. Picture two ways to fill that backup generator. The first way, you fill it with something that flares hot and fast and burns out quickly, like throwing a handful of dry paper into a stove. Bright flame, lots of heat. And then, 2 hours later, cold ashes. The second way, you fill it with something slow and dense that smolders steadily through the whole night, like banking a real log on the coals. Less drama up front, but it's still burning when the sun comes up. A dinner built mostly out of fast sugar and refined starch. White bread, white rice, pasta, sweets, a big glass of juice. The bowl of cereal before bed is the handful of dry paper. It sends your blood sugar up quickly. Your body answers that spike by releasing insulin, the hormone that pulls sugar out of the blood. And often, it overshoots, pulling the sugar down faster and lower than where it started. So a few hours later, right on schedule, around 2 or 3 in the morning, you're not just low on tank reserves, you're in an actual dip. The generator doesn't just run thin, it stalls, and the flare gun fires. Eat that exact same number of calories built differently with protein, with fat, with fiber, with slow-burning fuel, and the curve flattens out. The rise is gentler. There's no overshoot, no crash, no stall at 3 in the morning, and no reason for your body to fire the alarm. Same fuel quantity, completely different night. That is the whole game. You are not choosing whether to fuel your brain overnight. You're choosing how steadily. And steadiness is the difference between sleeping through and staring at the ceiling. Which brings me to a piece of advice I want to take apart, gently, because so many of you have been handed it. The advice is, don't eat before bed. You've heard it your whole life. Eating late is bad. Go to bed on an empty stomach. And for big, heavy, greasy meals close to bedtime, there's truth in it. A huge late meal can absolutely disrupt sleep. Large meals close to bedtime can keep you awake. That part is real. But here is where the advice quietly fails the very people who need help most. If you are someone whose tank runs out at 3 in the morning, then going to bed with an empty stomach and a half-empty tank is the surest way to guarantee the crash. You're not protecting your sleep. You're scheduling the alarm. The reality isn't never eat before bed. The reality is, don't dump a pile of fast sugar before bed. And don't go to bed running on fumes either. There's a narrow, smart middle, a small, specific, slow-burning bite, and that middle is exactly where the fix lives. We'll get there. But first, let's make this personal, because a mechanism is just a story until you can test it on yourself. So here are a few quiet ways to figure out whether this is your 3 in the morning, sitting right at home, no equipment, no doctor needed. Test 1, the clock test. For the next week, when you wake in the night, just glance at the time and remember it in the morning. Don't analyze, just notice. If your wakings cluster in a tight window, most of them landing between roughly 2 and 4 in the morning, that's a fingerprint. A worried mind wakes you at random times. A fuel crash tends to wake you on a schedule, because your dinner and your tank run on a clock. Test 2, the body test. When you wake, take one honest read of your body, before your thoughts take over. Is your heart a little fast? Are you slightly warm, maybe faintly damp? Do you feel oddly alert rather than groggy-wired, not tired? That wired and warm feeling is the adrenaline signature. Grogginess is normal waking. Wired alertness at 3 in the morning is a flare. Test 3, the hunger test. This one surprises people. Notice whether, lying there at 3 in the morning, you feel even slightly hungry or shaky, or like a few crackers would feel good. Most people assume hunger has nothing to do with middle-of-the-night waking. But that faint I-could-eat feeling in the dark is exactly what a fuel dip feels like from the inside. And test 4, the gentlest experiment of all, the one that actually closes the loop. On a night you choose, have a small, slow-burning bite about an hour before bed. I'll tell you exactly what in a moment, and then watch what happens at 3 in the morning. If the waking softens, or shifts later, or simply doesn't come, you've found your answer. You've found a real piece of the puzzle, and you found it yourself. Now, let's talk about what's quietly setting the trap. because some of the most innocent bedtime habits are the worst offenders, and a few simple swaps change everything. The first trap is the nighttime sweet. The bowl of ice cream, the cookies with tea, the square of something after dinner. It feels cozy. It feels deserved. And it is the dry paper fire, a fast spike, a hard insulin response, and a crash timed almost perfectly for the small hours. I'm not telling you to never have dessert. I'm telling you to move it earlier, away from the bedtime window, so the crash lands while you're still awake and harmless rather than at 3 in the morning. The second trap is the one nobody wants to hear about, and I'll say it kindly but plainly. The nightcap, the glass of wine, the small drink that helps you relax into sleep. Here's the cruelty of it. Alcohol genuinely does help you fall asleep faster, that part's real, which is exactly why it's so trusted. But it does two things in the back half of the night that are tailor-made to wake you. It fragments your sleep, and it interferes with your liver's ability to keep your blood sugar steady, the very generator job we've been talking about all night. Even small amounts of alcohol make it harder to stay asleep. So the drink that put you down at 11 is part of why you're wide awake at 3. If your nights are broken, this is the first and most powerful lever to test. The third trap is the empty stomach trap we already named going to bed on fumes because you think it's healthier. For your sleep, on the nights it crashes you, it isn't. So what's the protective side? What's the slow log that burns through the night? You're looking for a small bite that combines a little protein, a little fat, and a little fiber, because those three things together flatten the curve. A small handful of nuts, a spoonful of natural nut butter, a few bites of plain Greek yogurt, a little cheese, a boiled egg. Notice what these all have in common: almost no fast sugar and plenty of slow, steady fuel. They don't spike you, they don't crash you. They give the generator a quiet, even log to burn on, so it never sputters and never fires the alarm. That's the whole idea, in something you could hold in one hand. Now, let me give you the sequence, the actual protocol in order, because order matters. Don't do all of it at once. Do it as a ladder, one rung at a time, so you learn what your own body responds to. Rung 1. Fix the dinner, not the snack. Before you add anything, look at what you're already eating at dinner. For 1 week, make dinner a little less about fast starch and a little more about protein, vegetables, and fat. Not a diet, just a rebalance. Get the slow fuel in earlier, so the tank starts the night fuller and steadier. For a lot of people, this rung alone changes the night, and you never need the rest. Rung 2. Move the sugar and the alcohol away from bedtime. If you have something sweet or a drink, pull it earlier in the evening, ideally finished a few hours before bed, so any crash it causes happens while you're awake. For 1 week, if your sleep is badly broken, try setting the nightcap aside entirely and watch what the back half of your night does. This is the single most powerful test on the whole ladder. Rung 3, and only if the first 2 rungs don't fully settle it, add the small bedtime bite. About an hour before bed, have one of those slow fuel bites. The spoon of nut butter, the small handful of nuts, the few bites of yogurt. Small, you're not feeding yourself a meal. You're banking one quiet log on the coals so the generator runs smooth till morning. Then watch your 3 in the morning window and see what happens. And one more time, because it's that important if you manage diabetes with medication, do not start adding bedtime food or changing your evening routine on your own. That conversation belongs to you and your clinician, because in your case, the numbers genuinely matter. Sleep problems in older adults can come from medications, chronic illness, depression, pain, and other medical causes, so a provider should help sort out which one is yours. A video gives you the map. Your doctor reads it with you. So here's what you can actually do tonight in about 5 minutes, before you ever pull back the covers. 1. Look at what you ate or are about to eat for dinner. If it's mostly bread, rice, pasta, or sweet, add a little protein or fat to it right now. An egg, a piece of cheese, a handful of nuts on the side. 5 seconds of thought, and you've changed the slope of your whole night. 2. If you were planning a sweet snack or a drink in the last hour before bed, move it earlier or skip it tonight just as an experiment. 1 night. See what your body tells you. 3. Set a small, slow fuel bite by the kitchen, a spoon of nut butter, a little yogurt, a few almonds, and have it about an hour before bed. Slow log, quiet generator. 4. And then, in the morning, do the one thing most people never do. Notice. Did you wake at 3? Did the waking feel softer? Or come later? Or not come at all? You're not just sleeping tonight. You're running an experiment on your own body, and you're the only scientist who can. There's no money in a spoonful of almond butter, so no one's going to run an advertisement telling you to try it. The 15-minute appointment doesn't have room for this conversation either. Not because anyone's hiding it, there's just no billing code for let me explain how your liver feeds your brain at night. So let me be the one who gives you the time. Before I let you go, I want to ask you something, and I read every answer. Tell me your age in the comments. Are you in your 60s, your 70s, your 80s? I'm asking because this fuel mechanism shifts as the decades pass. The size of that tank, how fast it empties, how loudly the alarm fires, all of it changes with age, and it changes again after 70. So when you tell me which decade you're in, you're telling me who I'm writing the next one for. Drop it below. It genuinely shapes what I make next. So here's where I'll leave you tonight. The next time you snap awake at 3 in the morning, heart going just a little too fast, mind suddenly loud, I want you to remember what's really happening. That isn't your worry. That isn't your weakness. That isn't just getting old. That may be a small fuel tank running thin in the dark, a faithful old generator sputtering, and a body doing exactly what it was built to do, sounding an alarm to save your brain. You can't talk yourself out of chemistry, but you can change the fuel, and you can change it before you ever lie down. Sleep, it turns out, sometimes starts at dinner. Rest well. I'll see you in the next one.